All right, welcome everybody to the December 5th, 2016 meeting of the great minds of Kubernetes SIG service catalog. We've got a meeting agenda today that is rich and fortified with administrative items that do need to be discussed. So actually, I tell you what, I'm going to make a command decision now. And since the first one is super meta about the meeting agenda and process, I'm going to move that first. Brendan, you added this one. You've got the floor.
So I just wanted to have a short discussion and then maybe make some suggestions, or at least get people talking about how we're doing the agenda stuff, and then also just some more general process around the call, just to make sure. I think the meeting is the weekly call is going really well, but I think it's obviously an expensive call, and I think getting its process as good as possible will help us to use it to focus and manage the work we're doing outside the call. So that's just the foundation for the discussion points I'm going to make. So I think it's been really good for us to have the agenda doc. One of the things that I've noticed is that we don't necessarily spend time or get to everything on the agenda, and so a suggestion I have is that, so first of all, assuming everybody knows the agenda doc exists and is comfortable putting items in, to me it feels like it would be really useful to spend a couple minutes at the beginning of the call running through the agenda items with the group, and discussion to just prioritize, time box, or even defer items that people have put on the agenda, just so everybody feels comfortable putting anything they want on the agenda for the discussion for the week. And we may not actually talk about it, but we'll at least acknowledge it and decide why we're not going to talk about it. So that's just point one. The other point I wanted to bring up was that it seems like there are times when we spend a lot of time discussing things in the call that aren't necessarily beneficial to discuss in a call. I think having a call is very useful for some things, and also not a very good forum for some other things. And so it would be helpful to me to get really good as a group at identifying conversations we're having that we should stop and turn into action items with an owner to work through offline, whether it's to create a PR or some work item, or just think about things more, or whatever the action item is, and then bring that back to the group in whatever form is most appropriate.
So Brendan, I don't disagree with you, but I wonder if you can provide a specific example of something that you feel would have met that threshold in that, and how would you have preferred for it to be handled?
Yeah, I'll give two examples. I think one example I had that I was a little frustrated with was that we spent almost 40 minutes talking about how many LGTMs to have for a merge to take place. I'm not sure what the appropriate thing would have been, but I feel like that time would have been much better spent if we had identified that there was a problem and found some way to have found somebody who could make a proposal that we could then discuss in a more appropriate forum, or I don't know what. But I think there tends to be a lot more items on the agenda than we can handle in the hour, and I want to make sure that we are. It's great that we schedule more calls throughout the week as necessary, but I don't want us to be doing that simply because we're wasting time in previous calls, or we're not using time most effectively. The other example. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to respond to that one. So I agree that I would prefer not to have to spend 40 minutes at a stretch talking about that specific topic. With that said, since we didn't review the agenda, let's also acknowledge that we have an agenda item today about LGTMs on the on the docket for today. I think that you are right, and I think that one thing that I will add to just my own personal opinion is that like governance matters are a strange attractor, and they're especially strange in the dynamical system that is developers from like many different companies and many developers. They're really tough to have a focused discussion on. I know that Aaron, that you want to keep your agenda item very focused today. But like at the other end of the spectrum, I doubt that we will be able to totally forego governance discussions. And we have to find some way to have them, but keep them scoped and focused very specifically.
Yeah, Paul, I absolutely agree. We need to have these governance discussions, and maybe it's just a matter of when we identify what we're going to be talking about, also identifying what the outcome is we want on this call, so that things don't devolve into long-winded discussions that don't have final outcomes. The suggestions I'm making, I guess my goal with them is that we have 40-hour work weeks, and so this call is a very small part of that. And so as much as we can use this call to focus and manage the work we are doing outside of the call, so that that's much more collaborative and focused, I think is beneficial to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think one takeaway that we can have from this is that future discussions on governance, and I think we'll probably have a good one on LGTM on Aaron's agenda item for today, that we just try to be as specific as possible, and that we also keep in mind that in matters of governance, like the goal is always for something that is incrementally better. It's not perfection. And that's one of the strange attractors that tends to, or that's one attribute of the strange attractiveness that tends to present itself, is that as developers, we want to have like the right procedural algorithm for doing things. It's perfect. Unfortunately, there's no such thing, and it's like a honeypot, right? Like it's easy to get drawn into very pedantic discussions about governance and stuff like that. So if we can be really focused and precise about, one, what matter is being discussed, two, what the desired outcome is, three, be mindful that there is no perfect solution to these things, I think that will be great. EOF from me at this moment.
Great. So I think the only other example I have, and then I'll close the floor because I feel like maybe this conversation is going to take up too much time. I would say that the other concern I have is that we spend a lot of time, if we get to the point where we are spending a lot of time on this call working through designs of things, where perhaps a better mode of collaboration is that, and for that type of thing is to have an owner who is driving some sort of proposal that can be reviewed and commented on and collaborated with asynchronously.
Yeah, so I agree with you about that, but with the caveat that I think it's really important to have a group discussion of like the broad strokes. And we've got many of those broad strokes laid down. I think that there are just a few more that I would consider broad strokes until we can start getting to the point where we can have like as needed breakouts if something is has a high utility to discuss with people that are interested, but keep it off the main agenda. And just for completeness, I'll say those broad strokes that I would like to continue like group discussion on in this meeting or another video conference are like the unbind, deprovision, remove a broker ones. If we can get there, I think that it's way easier to do proposal-driven design type stuff. How do people feel about that? By the way, Kent, I'm totally jealous because it does look like you're drinking a beer. Sorry, I'm distracted. I saw a beer bottle and instantly gravitated towards that. All right. How do folks feel about what we've been talking about?
Well, it's 15 after, so.
All right. That sounds like Morgan's way of saying that he supports all brevity-centric efforts.
I would second that.
I don't want to be rude, yeah, but sure, I can definitely interrupt if that's what people want and, list the time or something. But, usually a pretty good discussion, so.
I like the idea of there's a better word than what I wrote in the doc, but identifying a topic or discussion that's taking way too long for this call, and then coming up with just a way, not a process, but just a really easy way for someone to volunteer to take it on asynchronously, and also after they take it on in some kind of proposal or design doc or whatever they need to do, then bring it up in a better forum. Could be another video call, could be something else. That's all for me.
Sounds good. What's our interruption safe word so nobody feels bad if they interrupt somebody with this?
I wrote rat hole in the doc, so I would vote for it not being rat hole.
Okay. Well, no, I know people.
How about strange attractor?
Anytime that word comes up, I think it's probably time to move on. So, okay.
All right. I think we're at strange attractor and no one has any issue. So let's move on. Thank you, Brendan.
So before we do that, is there any official takeaway for this bullet point?
I would say the official takeaway is that we will work to ensure that all items are handled with keep group discussions concise, especially around governance. Have a specific goal in mind that is explicitly stated. Call out at the beginning of each meeting what the agenda is, and we'll say strange attractor. It's okay to interject with the words strange attractor to signal that something is getting too long-winded or verbose and needs to be handled offline or in another VC.
Also, for a little bit more democratic process for running these meetings, if you throw an agenda item on the agenda, it would be awesome if you could actually be the one that presents that in the video call.
Where people have noted themselves as the author, I have tried to do that already. Let's just say, henceforth, if you would like to present an item that you added, then you need to put your name or some hint about your identity on that agenda item.
I would go even further and say if somebody adds something on the agenda, they need to be prepared to drive the discussion around it.
Yes.
And in that spirit, I just put my name next to the next bullet point about in progress PRs.
Sounds like we're ready to move on.
Okay. This is a bullet point specific to seeing in progress, the progress of in progress PRs on the list of pull requests in our repository. So before I get started, I want to scope this to 10 minutes and no more than the first 3 sub-bullet points, which are, as I said, determining the LGTM status of a PR from the list. We have 2 proposed solutions, and for me, the most important thing is reviewing PRs right now is fairly painful because it requires a lot of clicking and a lot of me reading through long-ish PR comment threads. And I understand that it sounds like petty issue and a shallow issue, but it's error prone, as I've seen quite a few times in my almost merging PRs that shouldn't have been merged yet. And also it has a cognitive drain associated to it. So that being said, I would propose that either we adopt pull approve, the K8s, I think there's a K8s bot, which I actually didn't write in the proposals, or the LGTM labels thing. And I would propose implementing one of those things sooner rather than later. So I would say let's start the 10 minutes here and be done by 1:29 Pacific Standard, or 29 minutes after whatever hour you're on. So I'd love to hear thoughts on this.
Hey, this is Brendan. I'm just curious, what in your opinion, or maybe other people have opinions and have used multiple of these, what's the best of those three options in our scenario?
So I'll start with mine. I can only speak to the LGTM labels. I can't speak to pull approve or the K8s bot beyond just what I've done in the K8s project. So I can't really give you a very good answer.
I will note, in Kubernetes, we have not solved this problem at all, and I have no preference.
So Kubernetes does actually have an LGTM label.
That LGTM label is for, it is ready to merge, and a bot can go merge it.
Okay, so it's not used in the same way we're talking.
Yeah, it's a trigger. It's not just that, like, looks good, looks okay. It means bot should merge.
So this is Doug. I have used pull approve before, and it does a fairly nice job of counting LGTMs and won't let the PR get merged until you get the right number. From that perspective, it works fairly well. It does not support the idea of automatically adding a LGTM type label, if that's what you're looking for. In particular, one that says the LGTM 1, 2, or 3. It will not do that as of right now. I have asked for that to be added, but who knows whether they're allowed it or not. But to be honest, the bigger issue we have right now is in order for us to use it, the powers that be that own the Kubernetes incubator organization would have to approve it. And as of right now, I don't see them approving it.
Yeah, I sincerely doubt they will approve such a thing.
Right. So if we're looking for an automated path, and I know, Aaron, you're not necessarily looking for an automated path. I think you were just looking for manually LGTM 1, 2, 3 labels, which is fine. Well,
I wouldn't even go that far.
Okay.
I
really, looking for an automated path, I think our best option is to look at.
Do we lose?
We're all silent there, Doug.
No, I'm here. I just was pausing for Aaron to finish.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Let me finish very quick. I want to be real specific. All I'm looking for is just to go to /pulls on our repo and see the progress of each PR going through our LGTM process. That's it. I don't need anything automated right now. Nothing else along those lines.
Right. That's what I meant to imply. You're okay with people manually adding the LGTM 1, 2, 3 labels. I personally would prefer some automated way. So I would love it if we could get someone in there to modify the Munge GitHub bot to do that counting automatically. I just haven't had time to look at the code to know whether it's hard or not. I can't imagine it'd be hard for it to count because I think it does look at LGTMs as of right now. So obviously it probably can count. I just don't know what it would take to make it add a label automatically.
Yeah, I think that would be probably significant change, having looked at the bot code and modified the bot in the past. But I think we are entering strange Attractor territory. And
let me make a proposal, Paul.
What's that?
Let me make a proposal.
You can make a proposal, Doug.
Okay. So in order to ease Aaron's concerns, since he's worried about this, let's go ahead and do people remember to set the LGTM 1, 2, 3 labels. And in the meantime, Whoever gets there first or cares enough, go look at the bot and see if we can modify it.
I think that is sensible.
That sounds good to me.
Cool.
Just don't hesitate to yell at me when I forget, because I will forget to set those labels.
Yeah, that's fine. If I see an LGTM label or if I see an LGTM comment that doesn't have a label associated, then I will feel free to add it, and others obviously can too.
All right. Also, note for the record, Doug wants everybody to yell at him.
Exactly. Yes. When my wife's not around, I need other people to yell at me. So, one last thing. Thank you. So, one last thing. Are we going to reset the LGTM count upon a new push or a new commit push?
I would say let's keep that out of scope for this discussion too. It's a good question. Maybe we can start that discussion soon, like after the next bullet point or something. But I think it's a bigger topic.
Okay, sounds good.
My position on this is that
Still 5 minutes to go. You're good.
I think we're done.
Aaron, did you see my comment in chat?
To assign labels, you need admin access to the repo. Does that present a hindrance or no? I don't know the answer, but I would say for now, we have a possibly less than optimal solution that solves the problem of seeing the review status on the /polls page. So,
everybody who can give LGTM has permission to add the label currently.
Thank you. It's much better than my answer.
Okay, I'm hearing we're moving on unless anybody disagrees.
We do have a bullet point below the one that I cut off at that I'm going to make a top level bullet from Martin.
Yes, if we're moving on, it's basically just a question. Do people perceive that the current process gives us the right amount of velocity? And I will also answer that. I think I personally am experiencing a little bit of slower pace than I would like at this point, but I think it's partly caused by the fact that we're still flushing out a queue of queued up pull requests that we've developed after the initial seed code, or when the seed code was snapped, we just kept developing and we're still flushing this queue. And I would like this flush to happen so that we can get into just regular development mode. So some of the slowness is basically as soon as we send a PR, we have another one dependent ready to go. And the queue is at this point maybe 15 deep.
Yeah, so I think that I would like to see the queue go down too, but I would also counsel against building chains of dependent changes because I've many times done that in the past with Kubernetes, and then the first one in the chain is like, I'm not sure about this, and then you've done all this work and you're not sure if you're going to be able to use it anymore. So that might not be the best time management strategy to have. But if you want to do that, I can't stop anybody from doing anything.
No, on our end, that chain is pre-existing almost, right? It existed a couple of weeks ago, and much of it is like rebuilding the Jenkins to the point that it can run on the GitHub repo. We had it working on our internal repo. Now it's making adjustments so that it runs on the GitHub one. I wouldn't say that I would say that none of the changes in that queue is of a challenging nature or nature to draw conflict, which is why I think it's okay to have these dependent chains. And some of them can be parallelized, and we've been doing that where possible. You will see it on a series of Michael's changes that are about to hit the repo. One of them has already done. But some of them just doesn't make sense to try to parallelize because they would conflict with others that are in that chain. But none of them I would put in the category of this is going to cause vetoes or long discussions or resets or whatnot.
Okay. Well, I mean, I personally think the pace has been pretty good, and I do think to some extent that like having in the open source world and needing to get group buy-in on things, it just goes a little slower. I am not sure what we can do to increase the velocity, but I will say that I don't think many polls that are uncontroversial have waited for more than a day. Do you disagree, Martin? Am I not perceiving it correctly?
I would say the pace has been maybe day and some delta around it. Some have gone faster, others have gone maybe a bit slower. But I'm generally an impatient person. So, when there's something non-controversial, it's got one LGTM, two LGTM, and there is really low probability that somebody's going to object. I would just say, let's keep merging to value velocity over stalling the pipeline on small non-controversial changes. But that's just me. I'm totally happy once we flush this queue.
You can always ping me. I don't like to sleep, and I am frequently near my computer. So if you're waiting on something that doesn't have my LGTM, you can always ping me.
Yeah, that'll help in some cases. Yeah. Thank you.
So my point of view on this is I'm very nervous about decreasing it down to one, mainly because I think having 3 there is a good practice to get set up, and I don't want to necessarily feel like we're going to do anything special just because we have a backlog of issues coming. I would actually recommend that you make your PRs a little bit bigger then, if you feel like some of them are getting held up and there really are as inconsequential as you say. I personally have no problem with one PR solving multiple nitpicky little things all at once. I don't think you have to necessarily split them up. But also there's aspect to making it be 3 that I think you may be glossing over. And that's by having 3 in there, you give more people a chance to actually catch up on what you're doing. If a PR gets merged too quickly and people focus on just the open PRs, they may not necessarily and look at all the PRs that were closed just to figure out what was going on and what's going in. Because I know personally, I don't have time to go look at all the closed PRs, so I'll look at only the open ones. But I don't want to lose that nagging feature to get me to go in there and look at PRs and make sure I understand what's going on.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I just voiced a little bit of objection to the idea of larger PRs.
So I want to cut in. I agree with pretty much everything, but I think we're entering the strange attractor territory here. So I apologize that I have to cut people off to say that, but that's my opinion.
Okay. I'm sorry, the chainsaw has completely blanked my internal cache, but I got it back now. You can, I think if you feel like things are non-controversial, I think that it would probably make things go a little faster if non-controversial PRs were a little bit bigger. I do think that the ones that are in the category that Martin mentioned have been fairly fine-grained, and maybe you can make them double them up for now, and we'll see if they have the same velocity. You can probably triple them up, and we'll stop. You can stop once we start saying, "Oh, it's too much." But I think what has gone in so far has been like I could see twice as big being totally manageable at the same pace, which gives you twice as much throughput change-wise.
Sounds good. So my takeaway for now is we just keep the process the same, and we'll try to increase velocity on our end by being creative with bigger or multi-commit PRs and whatnot.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm adding my name to the next agenda item because it is, I put it on there. So the next agenda item is I want to see what the appetite is in the group for another face-to-face meeting in the remainder of 2016 with the thought already in mind that we all probably have end-of-year or holiday schedules to do, but I could probably squeeze in another one if there's interest in availability for one in 2016. Alternately, I think that we should try to do something in January of 2017. I'm seeing a couple negatives on 2016 from the dais folks. A couple plus ones on January.
Yeah, there's no way I can do 2016, but January 2017 is doable for me personally.
Okay. All right. Anybody else with an opinion? So, was someone else going to talk?
It sounds like we're not going to have enough people to get quorum across 2016. I wonder if that's being a little too optimistic. We should just schedule everything for 2017.
Okay, so if we want to do 2017, how do people feel about maybe middle of January? I think middle of January would be my first availability.
So by middle, do you mean a week of the 16th or the 9th?
Yeah, maybe the week of the 16th. I think the 9th I might be traveling for personal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So probably the 16th would be safe for me.
This is probably a topic that could be moved outside of
Yeah, I agree. So I think the takeaway for now is negative on 2016, more interest January 2017. Takeaway is for me to send out perhaps a link where people can put their availability, and we can start making plans for the next one. All right. Things are going pretty fast in this meeting now that we've all agreed to keep it brief. Okay, so then the next milestone that is on here, or I'm sorry, next agenda item, I'll put my name next to it, is I wanted to discuss milestones for things that we will actually try to tell the community, hey, go use this. This represents a checkpoint on our work. And I think that here's my idea. I think that and I'm still trying to reconcile this with what my demands inside of Red Hat are, but I think that we could have probably 2 milestones, maybe one timed. Well, let's forget about timing for now. Let's talk about the second milestone and then back out to the first one. So the second milestone would be something that for me, I would like to be something that we think is more of like a GA release. And that might be a lot for a second milestone. Maybe we can have 3 of them, but ultimately I'm shooting for something that's a GA release that we think is full featured enough for people to get the right experience when they use it. Where right experience is TBD, but I don't want it to feel janky. I would want the GA release, first GA release, to be something that can use API federation. So that implies, like, at a minimum after 1.7, where I believe API federation will become the norm in Kubernetes. And that can use service injection policy, which has already been discussed as like an eventual end goal. And also has like a nice CLI experience, that kind of thing. So with that in mind, I think if you back that out and you look at what we could do before then, you probably get something that doesn't have API federation, that we could have like in the beginning, special binary for that you wouldn't have to, that could probably vendor in a lot of the kubectl guts, but you wouldn't have to switch contexts to a different Kubernetes cluster thing. For those of you that don't already know, the kubectl binary supports things like raw get and resource discovery from a thing that looks like a kube API server. So we could point kubectl at like a rough version of service catalog that has an API server that it can introspect and do and get a raw get and create and list probably. But to do something that's closer to what you have for kubectl for existing API resources, we probably have to write our own code, which is okay. And I think if you also back out the things that we want to do in the core, you take out service injection policy, you take out federation. And I know like the Deus guys have mentioned at various points in our previous discussions that like it is important for them to have usage path on older versions of Kube. I think that's good to have, and that initial milestone is one where you can use it on an older version of Kube because we don't make any assumption about service injection policy. This is just a rough idea. I wonder what others think about this.
It would help me solidify my opinion if you could write it down.
Okay. So I wonder if this might just be premature and I need to package it in writing in a proposal. I see Seth nodding. I don't know if he's grooving to the beat or if he's agreeing with me.
Both.
All right. Let the record show Seth was grooving. Okay, then, let's move on. And now I'm in real trouble because I didn't think that we would get this far once the agenda started filling up with administrative and governance type things. So now I'm really in deep, hot water. And so to avoid that, I'm going to move Martin's agenda item up. Martin.
Yeah, I'll start speaking. So we had a good conversation, I think, with Paul, and Tim Hawking actually jumped in as well on the issue of realigning our repo with Kubernetes repo, which is a good goal. And Tim contributed some observations in terms of what did Kubernetes repo do that doesn't look like it was a good idea looking back. And some of this, if we were to realign with what Kubernetes wished they had done as opposed to what they did do, we would need to make some changes, specifically move things from the hack directory into scripts and tools and not use PKG, which we may have settled. I'm not sure. My memory is kind of hazy on that one. I just wonder, do we do that? Do we let it sit and keep accruing the cost, or what's the group's feeling around that?
So I think we settled PKG, and I gotta respectfully disagree with Tim on this one. That like wishing you had done something is totally understandable and good, but I think the practicalities of like we need to keep in mind. I think a very high priority thing is to ease the cognitive like commit charge of doing a context switch from Kubernetes to service catalog. And if we start departing from what Kubernetes does, like, we will have people that will be confused. And remember, folks, confused people generate questions, and it takes time to answer them. So though things might be imperfect, this is just my opinion here. I'm not being dictatorial, but I want to make an argument on the merits, is that it's probably has a higher cost than we can imagine right now to do something that is different and make something organized differently. I totally understand the impulse to do what you think is right, but I think that what in a perfect world, probably things do look different from Kubernetes, and there's a cost associated with each delta. So like PKG, I feel really, really strongly about. I feel less strongly about hack, but I also feel like we should we should not let perfection be the enemy of progress. We've just moved things into hack. I really don't want to move them right back unless there's a strong reason to do so. And I will also say that the tooling that I expect that we're going to want to use around code generation for Kubernetes is very opinionated about where things go. And I think the path of least resistance is very much one where we probably go with the conventions, and we can evolve things at the same rate as Kubernetes evolves. Like, honestly, I also completely disagree with any assertion that it costs too much to change hack in the main repo, because the main repo changes quite a bit in certain regards, like with some regularity. So I don't know. What do people think?
I think I basically said everything in the chats, but my thinking is that we also establishing a pattern for new incubator projects, and hence it's going to be basically a go-by for everything coming after us. At least that's my understanding. So when we make some decisions, it would be good to understand if there's a reason for it. That is my personal thing. I just understand when I'm scratching my head and I'm going like, what? I just want to at least understand why some things were done. But yeah, I guess the big worry is that eventually there'll be 15 projects that are all going to look wonky just because one of them looked wonky initially. But
I see that I'm on mute. I see that Kent has put a fairly lengthy missive into it, so into the chat. So I will read it for you, Kent. Kent says, no, Vile, you are muted. I heard a little bit of what Vile said.
okay, can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, all I was going to say is that my understanding is that we are simply going to be establishing a pattern for all the other incubator projects moving forward. At least that's my understanding where we are. So hence, any project coming after us will be probably asking the same questions as we are asking ourselves right now, which is like, why did they do things this way? So at least it'd be good to understand why some decisions are made and so forth. And part of it is just for my own edification, which is to say, why on earth would anybody do this? But the other part also is then there's a cost for any project coming after us that will be coming from a standard project, if you will, where standard is Kubernetes is one standard, and then there might be another standard that is the rest of the world. I don't know how divergent they are, but there's some reasoning at some point, or if we basically go down the path of like, well, this is how it's all done, then nothing is ever going to change. And I'll just leave it at that. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, and I have not been trying to make an argument to authority that it is right to do it because Kubernetes does it. My concern is like basically around easing people into it and avoiding a situation where we hit a roadblock that takes like a lot of time to clear because we have to change some upstream tooling thing that is used upstream and in service catalog. And I have like, I basically have worried that we will have to fight like really hard, strange attractor laden battles with other groups in the Kubernetes community that might just be extremely counterproductive that we could avoid if we just shape things the same way and we work to change people's minds instead of changing code first, because like I personally, I think that like a point that went into a point that Tim made is that the interface to the build system is via the make file. So like, I don't think it should be that hard to change Kubernetes. If we really think that hack is wrong, then it should be doable to change Kubernetes. In the meantime, I'd prefer to not have to explain to people in the chat once this repo becomes popular that, oh, the build scripts are here. Maybe I'm blowing this risk out of proportion. It's totally possible. I'm just some dude, right? Like I don't know anything. I'm just a guy. Let me read Kent's comment in here. Kent says, "Dear Marty, if my calculations are correct, you should have received this shortly after you saw the DeLorean hit by lightning. Know that I am alive and living in the year 1885." Oh wait, I'm sorry. That's not what Kent wrote. He says, my mic is apparently not working. Wait, now I've just lost it. All right. Hold on a second. Hold on.
If you want, I can read it. I have it up.
I've got it now. My mic's not working, so I'm typing what I'm thinking instead. I think we need to deal with this on a case-by-case basis. Hack versus script, for instance, sounds like something simple where we should just maintain parity with them. To me, I feel like we should consider departing what they have done only in places where there's a more functional operational difference that impacts our ability to get things done smoothly or promote community understanding of our project.
So I would give that a big +1. The best argument I've heard to do things like Kubernetes is tooling. And I agree it's going to be very nice for people to come in and have our guy look just like our guy, our gal look just like the Kubernetes image. But that being said, as Tim has said, the Kubernetes image has and probably will change a lot. And even his, I think he called it a seed repo, or his kind of his best looking impression of what a good repo should look like for Kubernetes has changed as well. So we're going to have to follow that as well. And I think, again, the primary reason we would do that is to get tooling to work properly. And then a secondary concern, I believe, should be make this thing look comfortable to someone who's coming from Kubernetes.
I think we're entering strange attractor on this. Interesting. Okay. What do we want the takeaway on this to be? This was your item, Martin.
Well, I'm not hearing convincing argument one way or the other. It seems a bit of a difference of opinion, and none of the opinions really has a strong backing in facts or quantifiable facts, other than we exerted a lot of efforts to look like Kubernetes that they wish they didn't look like, which to me seems like it might have been a mistake. And the second point that is being made is we're trying to anticipate some nebulous tooling issues in the future, but we don't really know what they might be. So I guess we're making suboptimal decisions. That's my observation. We're making suboptimal decisions at a cost at unknown future benefit. But having said that, I'm totally happy to drop it because I'm not the only one playing in this repo. So long as others are okay with the reality as it is, I'll shut up.
Okay, I personally think we should just keep going the way that we've been going, and we should move on. But we do have only 5 minutes left, which is not enough time to discuss anything. At least, let's see.
One thing would be nice to quantify, I've been asking for that last time, is are we on par yet, or what is left to do? And we should be deliberate about each of those things, whether we want to exert the cost. And I would say burden should be on the person trying to make a change to justify that the change is worth it.
So I then, since I am the person that I think probably cares the most about this, I will take a takeaway to make specific issues for changes that I will like to see made.
That sounds good to me.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, it'd be nice if they had rationale, so to please Vilay's desire as well, and then we can weigh the cost of doing it now versus doing it in the future when the tool breaks that we are trying to use. But at this point, I actually have no idea what even the scope is. Like, what are the things that we would be changing?
Okay, I think actually we've come a fair way to doing it. There's maybe one or two things that I want to change right now, and then I can shut up about this and we can all just keep going and concentrate on solving the business problems in the repo.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we're at time now, just about. There's 4 minutes left, and so I'm inclined to inject one item which is not on the agenda, which is I would like to have a design discussion on unbind and possibly deprovision this week. I think those are very, very important to have group consensus around. I do not think that I am available to meet tomorrow at this time. How do people feel about a completely design-based discussion or design discussion, 100% design discussion meeting on Wednesday at this time? I see a thumbs up from Aaron. Okay, I see a thumbs up from Doug and Martin. And from Vile and Kent. So it sounds like we'll see each other again at Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. I will send an invite, Doug, and I will bid you all adieu. See ya.